What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another ranking video. We are going to do now all of the cards from Steel coming out in set 5, Shimmering Skies for Lorcana. This is a part of my ongoing series ranking every single card by color type in the set. I have already done Amber and Sapphire, so you can check out those videos once you're done with this one. Before we get started with the individual cards, let's do a quick breakdown of what Steel is known for. One of Steel's biggest strengths is its removal, mostly in the form of damage. There are a lot of very powerful actions and songs in Steel that deal damage to a wide board, or they deal a ton of targeted damage in order to remove pesky characters on your opponent's side of the field. Steel also has a lot of well-rounded characters that are very good at challenging and staying on the board. These are characters that are going to have abilities like Challenger +1, or they might have Resist, or some other abilities that help them stay on the board and resist damage. As a downside, Steel is not known to quest very well. Most of their characters will only quest for 1 or 2 lore, even the more powerful characters, so a lot of times Steel is meant to be used in a deck for its removal rather than its lore gain. Now that we have a good overview of Steel, let's go ahead and go into our first category of cards in the set. This will be the Trash Bin. Now, like I've said before, the Trash Bin isn't necessarily a useless card. These are cards that have many uses, maybe in a tribal deck of some sort, but they probably will not have a significant effect on the meta. First off in the Trash Bin is Stitch Team Underdog. This is a 4-cost uninkable with the ability Heave Ho. When you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to chosen character. Unfortunately for Stitch, Steel has so much removal that can stick into this 4 slot that you don't really need to have a 4-cost uninkable body. If it quested for 2, there could be a case for Stitch, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to see play. Next is Rudy Groove Disruptor. Love the character. It's just a vanilla stat line. I don't think you're going to play it over other vanillas that might have Floodborn things. Royal Guard Bovine Protector. 4-cost 1/7. This is the first time we've seen a 1/7 character. I love the stats on it, but I don't think that it's going to be useful at all. Kronk Unlicensed Investigator. It has Challenger +1, so it technically is a 2/4 when it's attacking, and it is a 2-cost inkable, which is pretty good. I think it's a good shift target. Maybe it could be higher than what I'm thinking, but right now I'm going to throw it in this group. Sneezy Noisy Knights. This is a 4-cost 3/4. The ability, when you play this character, chosen knight character gains Challenger +2 this turn. It's so expensive for a one-time Challenger +2 ability, and it has pretty poor stats, and it only quests for 1. Even in the 7 Dwarfs deck, I'm probably not running this. Dopey Knight's Apprentice. 3-cost inkable 2/2. With the ability, when you play this character, if you have another knight character in play, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character or location. Obviously one of those cards that's only ever going to see play with the other 7 dwarfs, so it's not that good already. And the ability is okay for that deck. It is nice to have some ping damage. However, I don't think that it's good enough to even make the budget bin. Grumpy Skeptical Knight. 3-cost inkable 3/1. While one of your knight characters is at a location, that character gains resist +2, and Grumpy himself can hit evasive characters. I don't think that 3/1 is a very good stat line. I guess obviously if you move him to a location, he's a 3/3, or like with the resist and stuff. So like he's okay, but the 7 dwarfs already take up so much space in the deck that adding locations as well is just asking for a flooded deck with just not enough stuff. Pete, Wrestling Champ. It is a 3-cost uninkable. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character named Pete, you may play it for free. It's really slow. Even if you're playing a Pete deck, it's really slow. Maybe there's going to be several other Petes that come out that will make this card kind of fun and viable, but I don't think it's ever going to be competitive. Bashful Adoring Knight. This is a 4-cost 3/4, the exact same stat line as Sneezy. While you have a character named Snow White in play, this character gains Bodyguard. It's worth noting that when you're playing 7 Dwarfs, you almost always have a Snow White on the field, so it will have Bodyguard a lot of the time. But even if it does have Bodyguard, questing for 1 with a 3/4 body is just not that great for this cost. When Will My Life Begin? Chosen character can't challenge during their next turn, draw a card. It is a song, it costs 3. It would be cool if Ursula can sing it twice, maybe. But I don't think that this ability is strong enough for this meta. Food Fight, 1-cost uninkable. Your characters gain tap 1, pay 1, deal 1 damage to chosen character this turn. I don't get why you would run this over Fire the Cannons. Like, Fire the Cannons does a guaranteed 2 damage to a character. Or you can run Food Fight, which is the exact same cost, and then you have to waste 2 characters' turns so they can't quest, and you have to pay 2 more ink, and then you get the same damage. There's not a lot of stuff here. Shield of Arendelle, costs 1 inkable. Banish this item. Chosen character gains resist +1 until the start of your next turn. Unfortunately, it doesn't draw a card, so you really need cards like Fortisphere in your Sapphire and Steel decks if you're going to be running items like this. So I don't think that it's going to be good enough. Plate Armor, 4 cost uninkable. When you tap this item, chosen character gains resist +2 until the start of your next turn. I think resist +2 is pretty underrated as an ability. It does a very good job of protecting. However, having it on an item that costs 4 is just not it. Steel Chromicon. Tap this item to deal 1 damage to chosen character. Pretty solid ability for an item. It can constantly deal that damage, but for 6 cost uninkable, no way. No shots. Like, by the time you get to 6 cost, 1 damage is going to be nothing compared to the characters that are going to be on the other side of your board. This barely even touches Maui. Like, this isn't good at all. The last card in the trash bin is the location, 7 Dwarfs Mine. It is a 2 cost inkable location, which is a very good price point for a 1 lore. Also very good stats. During your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. If it's a knight that moves there, then you can deal 2 damage instead. The only thing about 7 Dwarfs Mine is I don't think the ability is good enough if you're not running knights, So this is something that's only going to be fit into this 7 Dwarfs theme deck for now until there's more knights, of course. So I don't think that 6 health is quite enough for this kind of location. It's going to get ran over way too easily. So there's a lot of problems with it. I'll try it out, but it probably is not going to be very well used. Moving on to the budget bin. The budget bin is going to be full of cards that are barely there in the top 10. They might see some niche competitive play, but they might fall off. Who knows? Kind of in the middle. Let's go through them. First off in the budget bin is Sleepy Sluggish Knight. It is a 2 cost 0/4 with Bodyguard. It's a very good stat line to just stick on the field and help protect your characters in the early game. Maybe it could even be in an aggro deck that features steel. There's some cards that are supporting that now. So it may see play even in decks that aren't the 7 Dwarfs. But if you are running 7 Dwarfs, this is a staple. Hey, Protective Rooster, 5 cost Bodyguard. This time it is a 4/5 that quests for 2 lore. It's just very solid stats for a Bodyguard. It's kind of the exact card you want to have in, like, the 5 slot if you're playing draft or something. You can throw it on the board, you can attack and kill things, you can quest for lore, and you can defend stuff. It does pretty much everything. It's not specific enough to go into a lot of decks, but it could help a lot. Snow White Fair-Hearted, 5 cost uninkable, that is a 3/5. The ability, this character gains resist +1 for each other knight you have in play, and it quests for 3 lore. However, it's just so vulnerable to removal. You can use Let It Go, you can use Hades, you can use Medusa. We don't talk about Bruno. There are just so many answers in the meta for a 3/5 character. So unfortunately, it's not going to be game breaking. It's going to be good, just not game breaking. Yzma Unjustly Treated is a 4 cost uninkable 1/4 during your turn. Whenever one of your characters banishes a character in a challenge, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. I think it's a really good ability. I think that it has staying power on the board. It quests for 2, but is it strong enough to compete against the cards that are in the top 10? Probably not. It's a very good card, just not a top 10 card. Sir Ector, Castle Lord, 7 cost uninkable. Very huge though. Huge lad. 7 strength, 10 willpower, quest for 3. This is one of those cards that it's never ever going to see play in a competitive deck. However, if you get this card in draft, no deck in draft is going to get rid of this card. It's just not going to leave the board. So it's very good in those draft tournaments, not that good in competitive. Arthur Wart, 2 cost inkable, 2/2, quest for 2. It has good stats. It quests for 2, so it's not just, sitting on the field useless, waiting for a shift. It is a shift target for the new Arthur, which will show up in the top 10, so it's going to be a very good card. You might want to use a different Arthur to shift onto, but this is still good. Still a great card. Tug of War, 5 cost inkable. It deals damage to your opponent's entire board. I think that it's very expensive but it could see play. I think that going wide with your damage will be very important for Steel going forward because we're going to be heading into a very aggressive meta in set 5. So having this card in your deck is very useful. Most likely, people are going to be running a split between Tug of War and Avalanche. That way, you can sometimes get rid of Evasive, you can sometimes get rid of Locations. Duck for cover, 2-cost inkable action. Your chosen character gains resist +1 and evasive this turn. Steel definitely has a blind spot when it comes to evasive, so having a card that will give anything evasive and also protect it is pretty solid. I think that this could see play. Definitely will be a card to look out for in draft so that you're not so useless when it comes against evasives. Overall, I like this card. Bad Anon Villain Support Center, 3-cost inkable location. It has 7 health and 1 lore. It costs 2 to move a character here, so it is very expensive. However, the ability is pretty good. Villain characters gain tap this character and also pay 3 ink. Play a character with the same name as this character for free. I don't think there's enough villains to make this worth it for now, but I can see how in the future there can be a lot of very sick, nasty combos to get some very powerful villains out early. So I like this card. I think it will see play in the future, but just not right now. All right, now the part we're all excited for. What are the best cards coming out in Steel for set 5? At number 10 is Simba Lost Prince. 3-cost inkable, 2/4. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card. First of all, Simba has a Floodborn, so having this Simba in Steel will be a target for that later. Keep that in mind. Also, this is like a mini Jafar Dreadnought. Jafar Dreadnought has already seen play in a lot of different decks, mostly because it was a Floodborn, to be fair. But Simba's ability is exactly the same as that, and it's giving draw power to Steel, which Steel does not have a lot of that. Simba is actually a pretty strong card. I'm surprised it is a common. Doc, Bold Knight. You may be surprised to see a 7 Dwarf in the top 10, but you're actually going to see 2 7 Dwarfs in the top 10. Doc Bold Knight is a 2-cost uninkable 1/3. When you play this character, you may discard your hand to draw 2 cards. That is that's an incredible amount of draw power compared to what other things Steel has to offer. And the 7 Dwarfs themselves are known to be a very aggressive deck that doesn't have a lot of draw power at all. So the fact that you can spam out your hand and then on turn 3 or 4 drop Doc and then get 2 more cards is very, very good. So this is something that the 7 Dwarfs needed, but it's also something that could be used in other Steel decks that are more aggressive. Simba, Son of Mufasa, 6-cost uninkable 3/5. Floodborn that shifts for 4. When you play this character, you may banish chosen item or location. Any kind of item or location removal is good, especially if it can do both. I told you there's another 7 Dwarf in the top 10 because at number 7 is Happy Lively Knight. 1-cost inkable 2/1. During your turn, this character gains evasive. I believe in the last set, some people were even running the Magic Broom that was a 2-cost that had evasive just because they needed something that can hit Diablo. Happy can hit Diablo and kill it. So the fact that we are going to be trading now a 3-cost Diablo for the 1-cost Happy is going to be insane. Arthur, King Victorious. It is a 7-cost uninkable. It is a Floodborn though that shifts for 5. When you play this character, chosen character gains Challenger +2 and Resist +2 and can challenge ready characters this turn. The ability to challenge ready characters is incredibly powerful. Some people were even running Pick a Fight just for that ability to attack ready characters. And if you use Shift to play Arthur, he can give himself all those abilities. So you're not dependent on having another character in play in order to use Arthur. Number 5 is Kronk, Head of Security. 7-cost uninkable. That is a 6/6. Shift 5 to play him. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play a character with cost 5 or less for free. I think this ability is incredibly powerful. This is one of the characters that's going to be featured in the structure deck in Shimmering Skies, so this will be a very accessible card if you would like to run Kronk in your deck. I think that with his stats, it'll be very easy for him to banish other characters in the challenge, and then when he does, you can play another character for free. So long as you can keep your hand healthy with characters to play from your hand, Kronk is going to be insane. Number 4 is Namari, Resolute Daughter. It is a 9-cost uninkable, but for each opposing character banished in the challenge this turn, you pay 2 less to play this character. Being able to get this card out for 5 is a huge steal. It is a 5/5 with resist +3 and it quests for 3. So unless your opponent has something that's extremely targeted towards Namari, they're not going to be able to get rid of it, and it's just going to sit there and quest for 3 lore. However, one of the dangers of playing this card is that there's a lot of answers that aren't necessarily dealing damage. For example, sure, this card is pretty much immune to grab your swords. However, your opponent can just use We Don't Talk About Bruno, that sends the Mari back to your hands, and then it's a 9 cost uninkable again, and it's not that easy to get out when you don't have your characters on the board. So this is one of those cards that can win games very easily, but it's also very dangerous to play. Starting off the top 3 is Mickey Mouse Food Fight Defender. 1 cost inkable, 1/2 with resist +1. This may be one of the best 1-drops in Steel, period. It is extremely good because resist +1 is much better than having a 1/3 character. So it's pretty much immune to all of the early game threats until about turn 3 for your opponent. So it's very good at just sticking on the board and duking it out with your opponent's characters while you wait for some better cards to show up. Number 2 is Jafar Tyrannical Hypnotist. 6 cost inkable, 0/7, but it does have Challenger 7, and opposing characters with cost 4 or less can't challenge. Having 7 attack is incredibly powerful because what has 7 defense? The Queen's Castle. That is the best location in the game, and Jafar can take it out immediately. The only downside for Jafar is that it is susceptible to Red's removal that's based on strength, so it can be Brawled, it can be Medusa'd, it can be Sisu'd. However, I think that the ability of, running over pretty much any character or location with just this one card is worth the threats that one color can get a chance to remove it. And as a surprise to almost nobody who has been following Shimmering Skies content, the best card coming out in Steel is Pete Games Referee by far. When you play this character, opponents can't play actions until the start of your next turn. Not only does it lock your opponent out from playing actions, but it also locks them out on the turn where most actions come out, which is turn 4. So Pete being on the field basically completely shuts down your opponent for an entire turn. And if you are running Amethyst Steel, you can bounce him back to your hands possibly multiple times and do it over and over again. So this is just an incredibly powerful card. I am very glad that this is a uncommon that also comes in a structure deck, because if it was a legendary, this would be a $150 card. And that completes the ranking of every card coming out in set 5 for Steel. Hopefully I didn't make any mistakes anywhere because I cannot handle being wrong. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.